Chapter 16, Loss. February 19, 2010. Dear Yukari, I can honestly say every day has been an adventure since I arrived here. The moment I stepped off the train, I was welcomed by the dark hour. Naturally, I had no idea what it was at the time, but I can't say it was the first time I ever experienced it. We know that I had experienced it that night when my parents died. After all, in reality their death was caused by the battle between Ryoji and Aegis. Funny that I would eventually befriend both of them. Still, we all were given parts that we had no choice but to take. I probably developed a psychological defense to avoid the dark hour. Just making sure that I was never awake during that time. But when the train was delayed on my way into Iwadai. I couldn't avoid it. Yet I still tried to pretend that nothing was happening. No, you said it best. Awakening to our persona meant no longer being able to turn away from the truth. Aega's role was determined for her. She was the only one of her sisters that survived. She did all she could to fulfill the task given to her. Ryoji, on the other hand, was never supposed to exist, at least not in our time. Perhaps not for many generations down the road. And he would have never come in the form that he did. That incident changed everything for all of us. Your father died that same day as well, and it inexplicably sent our lives into an eventual crash course with each other. No, not just us but all of us in C's. Even if we had known everything in the beginning, I'm not so sure things would have ended up much differently than how they did. Still, despite all the circumstances that led to this conclusion, I believe it could have happened no other way. While I may leave with several regrets, I can say that I will go in peace. I did all I could, and I know that all of you will remain to be strong and fight for a better tomorrow. And I know you will find happiness again, Yukari. You're stronger than you realize. It is your inner strength that often gave me the comfort I needed when my thoughts were not at their best. I will forever be comforted by your smile and warmth. And I'll never forget you. I'm sure that, even though I have moved on, my love will still continue to grow for you. Love always. Arisato Minato. The Great Seal. Date unknown. They were fighting once again. A new enemy, connected with the past of not only the Kirijo group but the family line. Arisato. Minato had always suspected that it would occur. Maybe it was a lot sooner than he thought. He yawned, looking into the sea of unconscious. He could see glimpses of what was happening in the pseudo-dark hour as it was connected here through a mirror placed against the Great Seal. His twin sister was fighting against a large shadow, but all of C's was there to support her. Minato knew she would be fine with their support behind her. But what was the connection Yoshimitsu had to their past? Was he merely a researcher that had stolen his sister away, or something else? Are you truly satisfied with how things turned out? A man dressed in white approached him. Minato did not even look twice at him. Why shouldn't I be? My actions stopped the world's destruction. Or rather, the extinction of the human race. Regardless, I was already aware that by averting one disaster that more misfortune would occur. I certainly hadn't intended to leave Yukari with a child, but I know she'll pull through. She always does, Minato said with a smile on his face. He felt an even bigger yawn coming up on him, and he did so. All actions have consequences. You will slumber for an even greater time. Is there not a message you wish to pass on before it comes? The man questioned him. A message? Minato thought for a long moment. There were always more words he wanted to say. But was it necessary? Another thought entered his head. Actually, I'm wondering how I was awakened to begin with. I'm still the seal, but capable an amount of freedom. You said it best yourself. You were meant to meet your sister. Do you not believe it? The man seemed amused. Yes, nothing happens by coincidence. Minato shook his head. More than likely he needed to help his sister in some fashion. He had helped her without even thinking it would even be possible to do so. Hell, he had given her a persona, something that should have not been possible. The fact they were twins might have had something to do with it. Perhaps the truth being that they were connected. Connected more intricately than was normally possible. Persona was linked to the psyche, but what if twins somehow had a shared psyche? No, that didn't sound right either, but he felt like it was close to an answer. I shall continue to observe you with interest. I bid you good luck, my child, the man said. Minato quickly turned towards his voice, but the man was already gone. I'll never get used to the weirdo people I meet in here. Minato shook his head. He turned his attention to a mirror and walked up to it. Suddenly images of his sister and the rest of C's were shown. They were still fighting a gigantic shadow. Time waits for no one. It delivers us all to the same end. He chuckled, repeating words that had once been said to him. However, it is our choices that will lead us to our one true final destination. Regardless of the pain, you must struggle with all of your might. I know at the end, Nei-chan, you will find the answer you so desperately search for. Even if at this time you aren't even aware of the question. October 4, 2009, Dark Hour. Things certainly had progressed quickly enough. After he had recovered from his sickness, the days seemed to go by even quicker. He spent more time with Yukari now. She had made a point to wait around for him if he went to one of his clubs, and he did so likewise, heading back to pick her up when she was finished with archery club. Sure, managing all the social links and his girlfriend took some time to adjust to, but he wanted it to work. After all the time he had spent here, he had always gravitated to Yukari from the beginning. They had spent at least a month or so trying to deny the attraction they had between each other. The time in Yakushima had changed that perspective. Yukari had learned more about her father and Minato had been there for her. It was a key moment in their relationship and something that neither of them would ever forget. Today was another full moon. Once again they would be tested by an ordeal. Minato was sitting on the couch with Yukari by his side and holding his hand. Fuka was currently scanning the city with Lucia and everyone else was around waiting patiently. The only ones missing were Amada-kun and Aragaki Shinjiro. That didn't sit well with Minato at all. I've located the target, Fuka communicated telepathically. It's in the plaza in front of Iwadai Station. That actually wasn't that far from the dorm. Minato and Yukari got to their feet and he broke away from her to gather up his weapon that he placed on the table. This will be the 10th. Only a few left, but let's worry about them one at a time, Akatsuki smiled. Minato kept his attention elsewhere. He didn't understand the need for the chairman to spout this information every single time they left for the full moon operation. That's assuming they come one at a time, Yukari giggled. Just kidding. Yukari-chan, how did you know? I sensed 2 of them. Fuka was quick to add this. Are you serious? Me and my big mouth, Yukari grumbled as Minato walked up to her and playfully poked her nose. You should watch what you wish for, Minato grinned. You just might get it. Her eyebrows furrowed, but then another look crossed her face. Oh really? I have another wish then. Tell me later, Minato laughed. Yukari did a fake pout before she smiled. Where's Shinji? Akihiko asked the group. He just notified me that he'll meet up with you later. I didn't ask any questions, Fuka relayed the information. Figures, he's always played by his own rules, Akihiko shook his head. It's okay. At least he's coming, right? Junpei was always there to try and lighten the mood. Minato had to give him credit that for the most part he was more than capable of doing so. Yeah. Not like someone else I know who missed last time, Yukari teased. Hello, I was tied up, remember? Junpei groaned. Give a guy a break. While Minato had the urge to point out that he had gotten captured by a gothic Lolita that was about a third of his weight, but things couldn't be easily compared on size when the power of persona was involved. Plus it was also the point that Junpei was absolutely head over heels in love for Chidori, the girl that had wanted to use him to stop the operation during the last full moon. They didn't have enough information on Strega at that time, and they still lacked it. Even with the fact that they were holding Chidori, they had never actually gotten anything out of her. Although Minato was inclined to believe that she didn't know anything, and that the silver-tongued Takaya kept her in the dark. Minato had a feeling that Strega wasn't that big or involved. Considering their lack of actions as of late, they more or less had to be a group of individuals. And considering the limited amount of knowledge they had, Chidori was the one who had the capacity to scan. So without her they were unable to predict the movement of seas. That was just based on the information that Minato did have. Wait, Ken-kun isn't here either. Hey Junpei, go get him. That'll be your punishment for last time, Yukari said with a small grin. Punishment? Junpei shook his head. What is this, kindergarten? That little shit is more trouble than he's worth. Still, Junpei walked off. Alright, let's move out. This time, there will be 2 enemies. We'll determine our formation once we arrive, Mitsuru gave the order, and with it they all got their feet. As they walked, Minato felt an almost oppressive atmosphere coming down on him. The dark hour often gave that kind of feeling on an everyday basis, but something about this made Minato worried. But his thoughts were interrupted as they arrived at their destination. In reality, the station had not been that far from the dorm. Iwatadai Station, something he had passed on occasion during the dark hour. Now even this place was going to be a battlefield. There they are, Yukari pointed ahead from next to Minato. This is the way we go to school. We've got to protect this place. It seems like they've been waiting for us, Fuka observed. Where's Amada? Mitsuru asked Junpei as he was catching up with the group. He wasn't in his room, so who knows, Junpei shrugged. Damn it Shinji, where are you? Akihiko muttered angrily a few strides ahead of the group. I think we should hurry. They look like they're about ready to make their move, Fuka warned the others. Arisato, choose the team. Though I suggest a few stay here on standby with Fuka in case they make a move towards her. Minato shook his head and took a few steps forward. He had already considered his options and came to a decision. Kirijo-san, Junpei-kun and Yukari will be with me in the main attack force. Yukari will focus on healing, so Kiryu-san and Junpei can focus on the offensive. I'll keep us buffed and join in the attack as needed. Yukari, if things are going well, give your support in the offensive as well. Aegis and Sanada-san, I'm counting on you as rear support in case something happens. Minato took a moment to gather his nerves and slowly unsheathed the katana from his waist. Commence the operation. He put his katana in his offhand and pulled out his evoker as he made his way towards the 2 shadows. But as they approached, the larger of the 2 shadows looked like it casted something. More than likely this was part of their strategy to deal with seas. Like all the others, they had waited for them. And this was part of a trap. Minato shook those thoughts and focused on the moment. Yamagishi, what's going on? I can't detect the fortune shadow anymore. Strength must have done something. You can't attack fortune right now, focus your attention on strength, Fuka quickly informed. Got it. Minato put his evoker to his head. Matarukaja. Bolstering their attack, Junpei and Mitsuru moved right in for the attack. Junpei charged in first, summoning Hermes to attack with Kill Rush. Mitsuru released Bufula and avoided an incoming attack from strength. Seeing an opportunity, Minato switched persona and summoned again. Orobus. Torrent shot. He yelled, unleashing an incredibly effective piercing attack that hit the shadow several times. Then Minato noticed something in his peripheral view. Everybody! Jump back! Yukari yelled. Minato, Junpei and Mitsuru all fell back as a red carpet unrolled itself in front of them. If that wasn't bizarre enough, then what landed on top of the red carpet was just baffling. It was a giant wheel, like something that would be on a TV game show. The fortune shadow jumped onto the center of it and the wheel began to turn. What the hell? Is this some kind of joke? Junpei voiced what everyone is thinking. It seems you won't be able to attack them unless you hit that switch in front of you, Risato-kun, Fuka said. Are you serious? Minato found himself asking incredulously. I don't know how, but both shadows seem to be protected. The only thing you can interact with is that switch. That's all I can scan, Fuka explained, but sounded just as frustrated about it as Minato felt. So they want us to play their game? Yukari voiced her own frustration. Minato looked on the wheel. There were 4 sections, and each section was divided into 2. But each section had a symbol on it. These symbols. Aren't these the same related to some of the status-changing effects we've seen in Tartarus? Minato shook his head. Yamagishi, what happens on the different colors? I don't know, she answered earnestly. Shit, Minato angrily kicked the switch in front of him. The wheel began to slow down. Until it finally stopped. It stopped on the color red. But beyond that Minato couldn't see anything else. His head was suddenly overtaken by an insane buzzing, causing him to drop his katana and clutch his head with both hands. I get it now. The wheel's effects will depend on where it stops. Red is bad luck, so try to get it stop on the blue. Be careful, everyone is being affected by fear. Someone please heal if you can. Fuka spread the information to everyone. He remembered this feeling as an intense pain came to his head. Something was there, in his mind, like a small whisper that was beyond his scope of hearing but able to influence him regardless. The pain only seemed to increase with every passing second. He couldn't open his eyes, it was like a gigantic weight had been placed on his shoulders, making it impossible to do anything. He fell to his knees, the pain coming stronger now. Get out. Get out of my head. Me Petra. Yukari's voice pierced the veil of pain, and relief from it was almost instant. Minato wasted no time gathering up his weapon and evoker from the ground where he had dropped them. Minato released another torrent shot with Orobas and seemed to his several of strength's weak points, but it refused to go down. Junpei and Mitsuru were also releasing their own ongoing onslaught of attacks. Strength was hitting them back hard, but Yukari was there to supplement with heals and kept them all topped off on their health. Junpei came in with a hard-hitting attack. Hitting first with Hermes and a kill rush move, but then came in slicing right through Strength with his large claymore and turned around and gave it a home run swing that caused it to disappear. Alright. Score 1 for the good guys. Watch out. I sense fortune again. It's summoning the wheel. Fuka's warning caused them all to jump back with plenty of time. The red car patrolling back out and the wheel slamming onto the ground. Once again fortune jumped to the top of the wheel and it began to spin. Do you desire pleasure? Minato blinked as he stumbled back. A voice in his mind? No, he was being messed with again. Or is it pain that you truly desire? He gripped his katana harder than before. You feel unworthy of the gifts given to you. You feel guilty for using your friends as mere stepping stones to attain even greater power. You want to suffer because of it. You crave your own destruction. Minato kicked the switch again and the wheel that had started to spin began to slow to a stop. Could he deny that? Could he willingly deny the guilt that tore through him every time he felt the strengthening of a social link? And his relationship with Yukari also gave him a measure of strength. What was he really doing? Did he even deserve to be leading this group? Shouldn't he have died on the bridge with his parents all those years ago? What was he really living for? To survive for his parents? What kind of ridiculous notion was that? His vision blurred and he was sure that he had dropped his weapons once again. Do you truly have a reason to fight? Or are you simply looking for an end? An end? Minato let out a laugh and collapsed to the ground. The laugh started quietly then got louder and louder. Was it the truth? Maybe all this time he had really been searching for a place to die. After all, what did he have? He had no family, nothing to pass on to the next generation. He was simply a teenager that had no real meaning. What was he fighting for? Then something happened. A pain suddenly came from his left cheek and his vision came into focus all too quickly. He found himself staring into the concerned eyes of Yukari. He could see the relief cross over her face when she saw him looking at her. She quickly stepped towards him and pulled his lips to hers, and for a brief moment kissed him. He knew why she did it. And after a moment he felt everything become right again. The confusion in his mind was gone, and his thoughts focused once more. She broke the kiss and looked into his eyes. "Don't fall apart on me," Yukari whispered. "We still have a fight to finish." Minato got to his feet and picked up his effects once more. He turned and looked towards the fortune shadow. He slowly exhaled and realized a simple truth. His power existed for a reason. Igor, Elizabeth and the Velvet Room existed because this was a pivotal moment in his destiny. And there was also the contract. Simple. Yet perhaps the hardest commitment most people can make. "I chooseth this fate of my own free will." He had already made his choice. The reason he was fighting was an easy one. He wanted to protect them. Not just Yukari or the other members of Seas that were quickly becoming like family to him, but all the people at school and town. And even all the other people he had met in his life. All the time before in his life, he had just done enough to get by without really putting much effort into anything. Maybe that was what was best at the time. However, he couldn't be that anymore. His life was different. He wasn't alone anymore. He had people here that cared and relied on him. Minato looked around and saw Mitsuru, Junpei and Yukari looking at him for orders. He smiled and felt his resolve strengthen to a point that it had not been before. "Alright, this is it. Junpei, you're first up after I attack. Then we'll go in for an all-out attack." "On your mark then, Arisato," Mitsuru confirmed. He slowly raised his evoker to his head. Social links didn't matter. He shouldn't feel guilty about gaining strength through his friendships. Persona was a manifestation of his psyche, which meant that the stronger the ties with others were, it would only be natural that it would reflect in his ability as a persona user. The evoker pressed up against his head. He looked to Fortune and grinned. He fired not once, but twice. Then two personas appeared. King Frost and Black Frost. A gigantic snowman fell from the sky, landing on Fortune. It froze Fortune in place. "Now Junpei!" Minato yelled as he stumbled back a bit. Junpei launched forward with Hermes, landing a critical kill rush. Fortune fell to the ground just as Minato had planned. "The enemy is down. Let's go," Mitsuru declared as all of them rushed in. Minato the last one to rush into the offensive. All of them attacked with vigor and ferocity, and all of them brought their weapons down simultaneously, causing the shadow to disappear into nothing. The shadow had tried to shake his resolve, but all it did was remind him about what he had gone through to get to this point in his life. And with Yukari and everyone else. There was no way he would give in that quickly. Not anymore. He was no longer the person he used to be. "Good job, everyone," Fuka said as she approached them along with Akihiko and Aegis. "Damn, Arisato. I didn't know you could summon more than one at once." Akihiko came up to him with a big grin. "I wouldn't recommend it," Minato sighed and then felt dizzy for a moment. A pair of hands grabbed his arms, and it was only a moment later that he realized he had nearly fallen over. He looked over to see Yukari, who definitely looked concerned. "I've been hesitant to use the fusion raids in the past." "Fusion raids? That's a pretty cool name," Junpei grinned. "Dude, it's pretty amazing. That shadow was frozen solid. I don't think it ever had a chance." Minato shook his head. "I could never do this without any of you guys. Thanks." He wondered if he would ever be able to tell them that all of them literally were the source of his power and his ability. Without them. He would be powerless to do anything. "Hey, that's our line," Akihiko gave him a pat on the back. "What happened out there? For a while it looked like you were in pain." The concern came from Mitsuru, although he knew that Yukari wanted to ask the same as well. He could also see it in her eyes. "The shadow gave me a little talk. Minato gripped his head. Thanks for bringing me out of it, Yukari. She had acted quickly and knew exactly how to get him out of his panic. The others frowned though. It seems like this one was focused on Minato as well, although not as directly as the last full moon. Mitsuru didn't seem happy about this news. Perhaps it's her unique ability that they target in on. Minato couldn't deny that possibility, but he also withheld a lot of knowledge in regards to his power. Even though they saw the result of his growth as a persona user, he didn't think they would believe about fusion and the Velvet Room. Not without seeing it for themselves, and there was no way that he could help that happen. Man, talk about exhausting. Damn, Minato, you put me to work hard out there. Junpei took an exaggerated long breath. Should I have not picked you? He teased. No way, man, that was one hell of a battle. Junpei grinned. Minato and Junpei fist bumped, which gave them a few odd looks. Minato was glad that the two of them had been able to get closer. Although it had taken the whole incident with Chidori to get to this point. This time, those two who called themselves Strega did not interfere. Aga's voice put Seize back into the moment. It must be because we have Chidori, Yukari mentioned. When she said her name, Minato noticed Junpei unconsciously flinch. Anyway, I'm glad everything went well. At least no one was injured like last time. But, what happened to Aragaki-senpai and Ken-kun? Akihiko tensed up. It looked to Minato like something had just crossed his mind. The chairman doesn't seem too concerned, so he went home, Fuka said. Minato frowned. That only made him more concerned about it if Ikatsuki had already made himself scarce. Almost as if he didn't want to be in the way for whatever was about to happen. As a matter of fact, Ikatsuki never really acted when any of them had been in danger. Only when Mitsuru had ordered it. Yamagishi, where are those two? Mitsuru asked. I'm sorry, I haven't been able to locate them yet, Fuka sighed, clearly beginning to worry. Let's return to the dorm and go from there, Mitsuru gave the order and everyone nodded. Minato started to walk with Yukari by his side, making sure he didn't lose his balance. Thanks, Yukari. Did it drain you that much? Yukari asked. I think it's also combined from that shadow being in my head, Minato shrugged. Feels like I could sleep for. What a week. You've done that before. Any longer and you might set a world record, Yukari giggled. Makes you wonder what the world record is. And who decided that needed to be a world record to begin with? Minato and Yukari both shared in a laugh. I'm sure you'd be a top contender for it at the very least, she teased him. Minato looked up to the full moon for a moment. This was why he fought. Maybe not some crazy noble goal or a righteous battle as Takaya of Strega had said. It was simply to preserve peaceful moments like this. It was these times that made life worth that much more. Minato would have never come to this realization without the members of Seize. Today is October the 4th, isn't it? You guys go back without me. I'm going to go look for them for a while. Akihiko suddenly ran past them and disappeared into the night. Mitsuru looked stunned for a moment but then resumed their walk back to the dorm. Minato looked back at the direction Akihiko had run and a chill ran up his spine. Something felt off, and whatever it was that he didn't know left the mystery of the current situation all the more prominent. Still, there was nothing he could do till they knew where Shinjiro and Kin were. And it was best to do so where Fuka was more comfortable scanning at. He shook his head and looked over to Yukari, who gave him a comforting smile. Still, Minato felt the night was not over yet. March 13, 2011, pseudo-dark hour. She was out of breath, and felt overwhelming amount of exhaustion come over her. But Yukari had felt all of this before. Standing next to her was Minato's twin sister, Hamuko. She looked nearly twice as bad as her, and was even using her Naginata to help her stand. They both leaned on each other as they watched the last of the giant shadow disappear into nothing. You're as reckless as your brother was, Yukari let out a laugh, which probably sounded odd as she was also trying to catch her breath. "And your wine spells are pretty damn powerful. I thought I was gonna be blown off the roof." Hamuko seemed to ease up and had her back pressed up against Yukari's and took a deep breath. The two of them shared in a laugh before they finally were able to more or less stand on their own. "You two check on Ishida and Fujiwara. The rest of us will clear the shadows and locate the object projecting the pseudo-dark hour." Mitsuru gave the orders and left with the rest of C's to clear out the lower levels. Fortunately, the others weren't as worn out as Yukari was. To be honest, she was out of shape and had only recently started to become active again in the last couple months. But it was clear she wasn't nearly as strong as she had been when Minato was around. Then again, they had their constant forays into Tartarus that helped to keep her physically fit at that time. Archery taken by itself wasn't particularly physically intensive, except maybe for the upper body. Usually she added other exercises to make sure her whole body stayed in shape. However, most of that had disappeared during her pregnancy, and so she was hardly at the same stamina she had before. Although she certainly didn't regret it. "Saya-chan. Akira-san." Hamuko, having recovered enough, ran over to her two friends and untied them. Yukari was close behind her and quickly looked the two of them over for injuries. "Hamuko-chan." Sayane threw her arms around the crimson-eyed girl, to which was eagerly accepted. "I was so worried about you two." Hamuko looked just as relieved as she sounded. "Sorry to worry you," Akira said as Yukari took his arm and healed a cut on his arm using Isis. "It's all going to be fine now. We just have to find the item making the pseudo-dark hour and it'll be over," Yukari assured the two of them. "Over tonight at the very least. But many questions were now filling her mind. Who was Yoshimitsu? And what did he want with Hamuko? "Yukari-san, thanks for your help," Hamuko said, turning to her. There was a lot Yukari wanted to say and ask. It seemed like Hamuko had expanded and changed her repertoire of persona. Not only that, but the one line she had stated before the fight had started with the monstrosity of a shadow. If there was anything she wanted to start with, it would be that. "So I guess it means you've fully accepted that you were in Arisato then," Yukari smiled at her. Hamuko looked to delve into her thoughts for a moment before looking at Sayane and Akira next to her. "As odd as it may seem, I know it's the truth. The moment I was told I had a twin brother, I knew it was the truth. It just felt right. All my life I had felt like there was just something missing. And trying to describe how that felt was something I was never able to do. Nobody ever really understands when you say that. I mean, how can you miss something you never had, right? But I'm still frightened to find out how bad my brother suffered in his life. If the journal is any indication, then he must have hated his life up until he moved to Iwadai. To be honest, I only know bits and pieces of how his life was before then. I only found out some of it because of the injuries he incurred. How stupid is it that he had to be injured for me to find out how he had been treated by some of his foster families? I was his girlfriend and I feel like I hadn't helped him at all." Yukari felt so many emotions when it came to Minato and his past. "I realized that his scars were more than just physical. And I'm not sure he ever wanted to face that pain he went through again." "But you did help him." Hamuko's smile seemed nearly identical to Minato's. Yukari almost felt like she could see him through Hamuko in a way. "It's the only reason he was able to do what he did, isn't it? Maybe I was a factor, but not the sole reason he was able to do so. But Yukari felt like she was forgetting something. Like some sort of memory that was just beyond her reach. Then it hit her almost all at once. "No wait, he did tell me about his past. How could I have forgotten? Was this more of the effect from the abyss of time? Had she really forgotten all the bad things that had happened? Now that she thought about it, she had completely forgotten all the times Minato had been injured. She had even forgotten about when she had taken care of him during the typhoon and taking a bath with him. All of those memories that were tied to painful ones had been forgotten. Like it was a closed-off section to a library that couldn't be accessed. The journal was the only means for her to remember it all. Was that really my wish back then? To forget everything we fought through? Yukari muttered to herself. But you're remembering now. Isn't that why he sent the journal to begin with? Hamuko's voice was accompanied by the same smile. That's right, Yukari felt relieved. She took a deep breath. Although he had no way of knowing what would happen, he was worried about me not remembering. And he wrote it all down. Not just the good memories, but the bad ones. Even our fights. Every memory was important to him. Of course it is. Akira was the one to speak this time. The girls looked at him, he just turned away looking at nothing in particular in the distance. I don't know anything about this guy that was your brother, Hamuko-san. But I do know that every memory is precious, the good and the bad. It's what defines who we are. If anything, the more painful an experience, the more important it is. You're right, Yukari's thoughts drifted back to the journal. She had only recently started to remember some of the details, but she knew what was coming next in the journal. Yukari wasn't looking forward to it. She remembered the most painful part of their relationship. And the trouble that she had caused because of her selfishness. But she also knew it was probably the most important event of their relationship. Akira-san, we should tell them about what that Yoshimitsu said, Sayane spoke up. Yukari's attention was immediately brought back to the present and looked over to Akira. He seemed to stiffen a bit but turned back to Hamuko and Yukari. He mentioned a Kirijo lab was somewhere in this area and that it held some kind of key to his research. Something about Hamuko's past was his key to being able to force a natural potential from subjects. Akira sighed and looked specifically at Hamuko. Something that is unique to your family line. Unique? To my family line? Hamuko looked at the others for a moment as a realization hit her. Does that mean there is more of my family out there? It seems like that was what he was indicating, Akira said. Yukari felt equally as shocked as well. Even Mitsuru had a hard time tracing Minato's family down, but this Yoshimitsu apparently had the information within reach. Which meant he might be out to target someone in that family line. Perhaps another child, where he would promptly disappear to conduct his experiments and test his theory of if personas was a power handed down through heritage or not. This was bad. If they didn't hurry, they could risk losing his trail completely. Except none of them would be in shape to continue pursuit. Hamuko-san, we should rest for today. We aren't ready for another fight, Yukari said softly, knowing that the crimson-eyed girl would probably want to fight the point. Hamuko nodded though. You're right. I can barely stand. It isn't exactly time to rush off on a narrow-minded quest to try and beat this scientist to the punch. If anything, we at least know he has no intention of killing them, but... Yeah, we aren't sure what he can subjugate them to. Akira moved and took Sayane by her hand before looking to Hamuko and Yukari. Apparently he uses some ring to be able to maneuver in the pseudo dark hour. And he most likely has more objects capable of projecting the pseudo dark hour. That's my Akira-san. Always #1 on data gathering, Hamuko grinned. I think we should call it a night, Yukari said, and almost as if on cue, the pseudo dark hour suddenly ended. Looks like the others finished up as well. Yukari had always known that the fight with shadows wasn't over. Shadows would always exist. She had no idea that events would lead her to where she was right now. Her thoughts drifted to Minato and the Great Seal day he was confined to. The statue of him crucified upon the gate was an image she could never get rid of. He had to be so alone there. Just as cold as he had been when he came into the dorm from that typhoon. She would do anything to wrap her arms around him again. But he had sacrificed so much for all of them. And although he would never see his daughter, she was truly a miracle to Yukari. The darkest time in her life had been saved because of her pregnancy. It was irrefutable proof that the man she loved had existed. Kokoro was a beautiful baby girl that had saved Yukari from the despair of losing Minato. She thought she had no room in her heart to love anyone ever again. But that wasn't true. True to her name, Kokoro was her heart now. And she would love her daughter and give her everything she ever wanted. She was the symbol of the love she had shared with Minato. A constant reminder that she had once given herself, body and soul, to a single man. She smiled as she looked into the night sky. Minato had saved her life once more, although it pained her that he would never know. Still, she would live her life loving their daughter and trying her best to help those around her so that even if just by a little people would stop wishing for the fall. Then perhaps one day the need for the seal would disappear. October 4, 2009, Dark Hour. Shinji. Akihiko ran forward. How very disappointing, Takaya frowned and quickly made his escape. They had arrived too late. Minato felt an intense rage bubbling up under the surface. He took a few steps towards the escaping Takaya, but Yukari grabbed his hand and pulled him back to her. She refused to loosen her grip when he tried to shake her off. "Let me go, Yukari," he growled. "I'll kill that bastard." She refused. "Stop it, Minato. Heal." Yukari pleaded, not having the strength to finish her words, but the death grip on his hand remained. He already knew what she wanted to say. That Takaya would shoot him too. Minato turned to Shinjiro. They all gathered around him. "What's with the long face? Isn't this what you wanted?" Shinjiro coughed up some blood but had a smile on his face looking up at the young Amata-ken. Minato realized the truth in that face. Shinjiro had come here tonight to die. He had already made his peace and accepted his fate. 2 years ago, Seize was only 3 individuals. Akihiko, Mitsuru, and Shinjiro. They had been chasing a shadow through the city and it had led them to this destination that they were at now. With such a reckless abandon as they gave chase, they had paid no heed to their surroundings. For a brief momentary moment, Shinjiro lost control of his persona, and a casualty had occurred. It had been the mother of Amata-ken. Worse being that the young boy had seen it all. Finally gathering up his courage, the young boy had called out Shinjiro tonight to face him and kill his mother's murderer, but there were things that Amata-ken didn't know. The man that stood before him had been a broken one. Taking pills to suppress the persona that had killed Amata's mother, even at the expense of shortening his lifespan. He regretted what had happened so much that he had given up on life. All Shinjiro had been really looking for was a way for it all to end. "It's alright, give yourself time. Let your anger become your strength. Come on, Ken. You're just a kid. You've got your whole life ahead of you, so don't waste it. Make it your own, okay?" Shinjiro smiled looking at Ken. But I. Ken couldn't say anything coherent looking at the man who had taken 2 gunshots in the chest to protect him. Take care of him." Shinjiro's eyes looked to Akihiko. "I will," Akihiko promised. Shinjiro then got to his feet amazingly enough. He took a couple steps looking at all of Seize and took a moment to stop on Minato. "I'm going to stop all of this. I'm going to find a way to save them all. I swear it." Minato's resolve made Shinjiro grin. "Good. I'll hold you to it." He took a couple steps away, furthering himself from the group. Then Shinjiro looked up to the full moon. "This is how it should be." He then collapsed. Minato knew without looking. Aragaki Shinjiro was dead. Ken cried out in anguish. Most of Seize did the same. Yukari was shaking next to Minato and quickly escalated to tears and wrapping her arms around him as she cried and screamed against his chest. Minato looked at the others and felt himself overcome by anger. Takaya would pay dearly for what he had done tonight. And Minato would be the one to dish out the punishment.